Troy, you are exactly correct. We did have a nice stretch of warm, dry weather, and we actually seen some pretty significant gains in terms of harvest activity. Sunday's report from NASS basically indicated that we were over the 50% mark on soybean harvested, and corn was up around 35%. So we gained about 16 percentage points on the soybean harvest, and really most of this soybean harvest started to occur after Wednesday. So with the few dry days earlier this week before our system coming in midweek, we would expect that we would see some pretty significant increases in the amount of harvested acres for soybeans, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us somewhere between the 70 and 80% harvested by the time we see the Sunday report, and corn probably pushing over 40%. Now, we did see some activity with that system moving through there in the midweek. Primarily the heaviest precipitation was in south central Nebraska, generally 1/4 to a 1/2 inch, with a few isolated totals approaching 3/4 of an inch, and most of the remainder of the state was generally between 1/4 of an inch and about 4/10 of an inch south of Interstate 80. So today what we have now is a little trough that is built to the east of us with that system that passed through us earlier in the week, and we have a little reinforcing shot of cold air coming down the pipeline for this evening. So we have low pressure at the surface both in eastern Dakota and in northwest Kansas. This low up here in the Dakotas will be the primary focus for precipitation as it slides toward the southeast, just clipping northeastern Nebraska, and at best we're looking at a 1/4 inch up in Minnesota out of this precipitation. We see high pressure reestablish itself on Sunday. Cool conditions with that front coming through will be primarily in the 50s statewide as the precipitation starts to shift over the Great Lakes with a little bit of light snow possible. And then we see the ridge moving toward the east, bringing us a southwest flow at the surface. We also have low pressures trying to develop at the surface. This will increase our winds from the southwest, bringing us a much warmer day, and we'll see temperatures primarily in the 60s on a statewide basis, with most of precipitation up in the Pacific Northwest. By the time we get into the day on Tuesday, we'll see this big trough digging a large carving pattern across the United States, with low pressure starting to develop in eastern Texas and Missouri. That will start to feed some moisture up, and we'll see some precipitation potentially breaking out in northern Missouri and southern Iowa. And as this trough moves toward the east, it will strengthen, and we will see a tremendous amount of precipitation along this front as it moves eastward, as we see low pressure moving along the Gulf Coast, really throwing the moisture up into this region with very heavy precipitation likely from eastern Texas through the lower Ohio River Valley. And that trough remains in place as we go into the day on Thursday. We do see that system coming into the Pacific Northwest, but it'll be a few days before it gets here. Low pressure once again showing up from the Texas Panhandle up into eastern Iowa. That will help to reinforce the moisture along the front and actually shift some moisture up into the central Rockies, with a piece of energy breaking out of this trough moving into the Pacific Northwest on Friday. Low pressure indicated the surface developing in southwestern Nebraska, but there really isn't anything for moisture to feed this. So any of the moisture that does come up into the system looks like it's going to be primarily an upslope flow, and it will primarily affect the western 1/3 of the state. We look a little farther out into the future, next Thursday through the following Tuesday, below normal temperatures as that trough begins to move into the Intermountain region in terms of precipitation. Widespread precipitation, and this system is expected to make a tremendous impact on the Central Plains as we get between the 5th and the 7th of November. So Troy, looks like decent harvest activity for a few days, and then things fall apart later next week.